In this video, we're going to be transplanting things that I've started in the indoor gardens in all of my tabletop units and get them ready and prepared to go into the ground for the outside garden. All right, we are in front of the chicken coop, so we're gonna have a little bit of action going on behind us, but we need to do this project outside because we're gonna be working with dirt and not just the beautiful water and the systems that we have inside the house. All of these systems can be used to start your outdoor plants. So you're basically just creating your own greenhouse. Now, I do love to support my local greenhouses, so this is not everything that is going to be going into the big garden outside, but I wanted to do as much of it as I possibly could on my own. As I was taking all of these units apart, let me talk about them really quickly. This is my Hortas. The light bar came off very easily and I had no problem with that, so I just brought the entire thing outside. Again, with the U-Harvest, this just slides right off your main tray, and so I could bring this outside with no problem. For whatever reason, the Hope Garden, I could not get the light bar to come off of the system like the Hortas, so I just brought this with a little bucket of water underneath. These are my zucchini and my squash that were in the Doxiga fish tank. Obviously, the fish did not want to come outside, so I just pulled each individual net cup right out, and I always label everything with these little stickies so I kind of know where everything is, and just added the stickers right to my containers so I don't lose anything. Now, a little bit different with the Arrow Garden. The Arrow Garden has these seed trays, everything's squished together. They're not made to take your plants to a super large level of growth, and there's really no way to mark these. Kind of going back to old school kid days, because I actually took just a piece of paper, a pencil, and I scratched and rubbed to make myself a little bit of a template, and then I could mark what was where, so that will help with that. Now, when you're going from hydroponic to actual soil and pots, one thing to note is that your plants and your roots have been in water 24/7. They do not have a drying out stage. The root system is going to be a little bit different than what you would have inside your garden, where those roots are going down into the ground and always looking to expand and find more water. So as they do grow big roots, they're not the same because they're just sitting in water. So we have to put them into the pots, and then we're going to be watering them and over-watering them for the first probably week or two, because they're so used to this, and we have to give the roots time to kind of find their place and settle into the soil. So with that, we're gonna be trimming roots back as well. Instead of going into really long trays, your black trays that you would get at the greenhouses, I am using these little green pots because my plants are significantly bigger, they're more established, and we wanna give them that room. I have some crazy robins around me. Hopefully they're not going to get too upset with me. One thing that you're going to have to be gentle with is pulling them out. You're going to be breaking root. You're going to be probably losing some, and that's all right because this is a really long root and we're going to cut this down anyway. It does not have to be this long to be in the pot. Now, another thing that I did was I planted 2 in a lot of these. That was not necessary, but if I had one seed that didn't work, then I always had a backup. You can either make the choice of picking the one that seems a little bit stronger, more mature, and just getting rid of the other one, which that can just kill you. I know, I hate it. I hate pruning, I hate trimming. You feel like you're just gonna kill that plant off. But we can also really start to pull these apart and get those separate plants out. What I'm gonna do is run my fingers right down the root system and kind of get them so they're split into 2, and it will come up through our basket. Hi, Robin. Don't know what your issue is today. We got that to slide out, and you can see I just lost a little bit of root, not a big deal. I'm gonna grab one of these big trays and put it on the ground just to throw all of my net cups into, because we're gonna have to take those back inside and get those washed out. Now I'm going to fill one of these, but I'm only gonna fill it halfway. What I'm using is a potting mix. Now I want to note, potting mix and potting soil are two totally different things. Potting mix is going to have kind of a compost. It's going to have the little styrofoam balls in it. It's already going to be nutrient rich in the mix. Potting soil is really heavy. It's soil, so it's more dense. If you're using anything for hanging baskets or deck pots or anything like that, the potting soil is going to be really, really heavy. This is more light and airy, and it allows those roots to move through it. Now with 2 plants in here, I'm literally going to be kind of shredding away this growing media, and I'm just going to be ripping it down and around and grabbing chunks of it right off. And then I should be able to get these 2 plants separated apart and finding which roots belong to which plant. This one goes over here and those go to that one. And now I have separated them. So there is a little bit of that growing media on there, and that's totally fine. I think we're gonna have some eggs being laid here soon. Now, these roots are really long, and you can tell that would be too much for the basket. I'm just gonna take my little garden shears, and I'm gonna cut about half of this off. And now we can just lightly lay it down in the middle. Now, one reason why I only do half of the pot with the potting mix is because I can figure out how high or where I want this to be and then add the soil around it. And you'll have to straighten it out some and push it down to keep it in place. And then if you need to put a little bit more in around the edges, we can do that. Now I have a hose right here. And this hose nozzle is from Stanley. One of my favorite, most durable, and I just have it on a nice shower. And I'm gonna keep soaking these as we go. Now this one doesn't have as much of a root as the other, so we really don't need to take much off, maybe just a little inch at the bottom. Just lightly put it in there and then add our dirt over top. Give it a good pack, add some more, and give it a spray. All right, we're gonna move away from the tomatoes for just a moment. And we're gonna take a look at the ones from the Arrow Garden. Now, my really big plants up here are my pickles or my cucumbers. So we're gonna see if we can get these to pull out. And you can see I have a huge mass root ball down here. So we're just gonna comb through that again with our fingers. And if we lose some, we're good. Don't panic. This is too much root to go into our pots anyway. Now I could have transplanted these earlier and you wouldn't have quite the root problem. But where I live, sadly, I'm still not ready to plant outside. And I'm gonna have to keep these outside during the day. They can have some natural sunlight. But then in the evening, I'm going to be probably bringing them into my mudroom. Now let's talk about bugs. Because I'm taking these outside, I'm introducing them to outside. By the way, I'm gonna plant this entire pod because there's just one in here. I don't have to worry about separating it out, so make sure you're giving yourself some room for that. But because I'm introducing these plants to the outside, they are potentially going to get bugs. Then if I am bringing them inside, what am I doing? I'm bringing those bugs into my indoor gardens, which I have been actually fighting Not so much of the aphids, but I have been having a problem with the white flies. It really makes me want to clean out the systems anyway, which I tend to do from time to time. I clean everything out and then I let them rest for a while. So if you time everything correctly for your season, and this is where journaling really comes in. I wrote down the dates of when all of this was planted. I'm gonna write down today's date that I'm now potting them, and I can then tell next year if my time schedule was good or not. If it wasn't good, then I can back it up a week or two if I'm late or if I'm too early, depending on what season and what grow zone you're in. I planned it that all of these systems would lose what's in them going to the outside gardens, and the tomatoes that are in the iHarvest, they're gonna get cropped and pulled out. Those are all gonna get power washed, and then everything together will be sitting empty for a little while, which is fine because that gives me time to work on the outside garden. All right, let's grab another one of these. And if there are some little dead leaves on your underneath sides, go ahead and pop those off. Clean up your plants as you're going. And it looks like there might be 2 in here, but with the pickles, I'm not really gonna worry about it because they're just all gonna trellis up. They're gonna be all over the place anyway. The tomatoes we really want separated out. Now, if you're leaving the growing pod in, that's gonna be helping to hold some moisture, but we still wanna make sure what is going to feel like us for outdoor gardening, that we are over watering. Because again, those roots are used to being in so much water, and we're gonna have to slowly back that water off. All right, now before I forget what everything is and I get too far, I'm going to look at what my stickers are. And these are garden stakes. They are big plastic ones that have other things marked on the back, on the other side. Don't even have these plants anymore, so I'm gonna be reusing the back side. And I'm gonna put my cucumbers on here. And these are market cucumbers. Now, just in this little bit of time, I'm already seeing the tomatoes are not happy, right? So we have pulled some roots. They're gonna start drying out very, very quickly. So don't fret, just keep an eye on them and they will adjust. I also have a watermelon, which I only had one that came up, and then I have zucchini and squash. One thing to know, if you're leaving them in the hydroponic systems too long, this one is starting to flower already, and we really don't want that. You could pop those out, pop them off, and really give the energy back to the plant instead of going premature into a flowering or fruiting stage. The good thing with the Arrow Garden and these seed trays is that we're not having to toss off to the side our growing cups or our net cups and wash them later. It's just all molded into one big, huge system. So this one I'm gonna go ahead and trim my roots down as well. Girls, you be nice back there, picking on each other. You need to learn to get along. Now that everything is transplanted from the indoor gardens into the trays, we just need to keep an eye on them, water them often. Everything went into individual pots. Some of the smaller tomatoes went into 3-cell containers because they didn't have as much root established. I have one watermelon that is very large, and so that went into a clay pot for now. You can see outside there's not much going on. I try not to plant until probably the first or second week in May, and then I may even have to watch for our frost dates at that point, but stay tuned. I don't ask often. Please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out, or give me a like on this video, and I'll see you on the next one.